Vince McMahon files an official response to the Janel Grant lawsuit. Plus, another WWE star has been released. And we had a major WWE title change at NXT Spring Breakin. It's all in the Cultaholic wrestling news right now. Vince McMahon facing allegations from former employee of WWE Janel Grant. Abuse, assault, and trafficking are some of the things discussed in the initial filing from Janel Grant. Vince McMahon, via his legal team, have filed an official response to the Janel Grant lawsuit against himself, John Laurinaitis, and WWE.
Yes, it begins. Defendant Vincent K. McMahon respectfully submits this memorandum of law in support of his motion to compel arbitration of plaintiff Janel Grant's complaint filed on January 25th, 2024, pursuant to the Federal Arbitration Act. By publicly filing her salacious, false, and defamatory complaint, the plaintiff has brazenly and intentionally violated a binding contract to arbitrate. The complaint's outrageous claims of abuse and coercion are pure fiction, plainly intended to garner publicity, and are flatly contradicted by plaintiff's own contemporaneous statements.
Contrary to the plaintiff's false allegations, plaintiff and defendant, collectively the parties, engaged in a consensual relationship during which defendant never coerced the plaintiff into doing anything and never mistreated her in any way. In fact, in a love letter plaintiff wrote to the defendant shortly before the parties ended their relationship, the plaintiff described the defendant as my best friend, my love, my everything, praising him for being the wonderful, tender, vulnerable, heart on your sleeve soul that you really are.
It goes on to say, it is incredulous that plaintiff, a then 42-year-old woman who claims on her resume to have a law degree from Pace University, would have written these words to defendant months after all the events of the complaint of alleged abuse, coercion, and trafficking took place.
Now, at the time the parties met in 2019, the plaintiff was not dealing with profound grief from her parents' deaths and struggling financially, as described in her complaint. She has not been devoting years around the clock caregiving to her parents either. Those statements are complete falsehoods. Based on a foreclosure action against the plaintiff and her parents, the plaintiff's father passed away on April the 18th, 2017, 2 years before the plaintiff met the defendant, and his marital status was recorded as widowed, confirming the plaintiff's mother had passed earlier. Court records further show that contrary to her claim of around-the-clock caregiving, plaintiff's father lived in a senior care home in Stamford, Connecticut before he passed away, not with her, and the Grant's neighbor would bring plaintiff's mother dinner and help around the house before she passed. In fact, contrary to her story of around-the-clock devotion to the complaint, the foreclosure action on her parents' home reveals that the plaintiff was adamant that she did not want to be associated with, quote, any of this, and failed to respond to requests regarding the foreclosure action. Indeed, plaintiff was so absent in her parents' lives that it took substantial time and significant effort for the creditor in the action to locate her and identify her as her parents' next of kin.
And then the statement continues to go on to describe the relationship between McMahon and Janel Grant as consensual, in full knowledge of both having existing relationships. The statement also claims that Janel Grant would visit Vince McMahon at all hours, and that she and her fiance, attorney Brian Consalves, lived 4 floors above McMahon in Park Tower, a multi-million-dollar building in Stamford, Connecticut.
Now, the statement goes on to say, after 3 years and having decided to return to their partners in January of 2022, the plaintiff and the defendant agreed to end their consensual affair and separate from each other, with plaintiff leaving the company where they worked, WWE. Plaintiff and the defendant entered into a binding contract to memorialize that agreement entitled Confidential Settlement Agreement. The plaintiff initially wanted to include a term in the contract mandating that the defendant could not move out of their shared building, but the defendant refused to include that term and did indeed move out.
Vince McMahon's attorneys also cite a section of Janel Grant's non-disclosure agreement stating that any grievances the two parties should have should be settled in private arbitration as opposed to in public court. So this motion is designed to take the matter out of public court and instead into private arbitration.
And they end by saying, when the defendant learned that the plaintiff, despite her promises, had violated the agreement by wrongfully disclosing both the existence of the agreement and their relationship, he exercised his contractual right to withhold payment otherwise owed under the agreement. In the response, plaintiff sought to harm him. She intended intentionally violated the enforceable contract with her salacious, false, and defamatory public filing. However, the FAA and binding United States Supreme Court precedent and the plaintiff's own agreement require that if the plaintiff wishes to proceed with her fictitious claims, she must do so in arbitration, not in this court, and that this action be stayed pending arbitration.
And then the statement ends with further denial of the abuse and the trafficking allegations that were alleged in the filing. So this very much is obviously, as we've said, Vince's legal team's response to the claims, and it seems to be, painting Janel Grant as a liar. That's what it's trying to do, saying, there was a consensual relationship. She wrote this love letter to Vince. She wasn't giving round-the-clock care to her parents. Things that might not even factor into the actual accusations made against Vince. But it's like a legal strategy, isn't it? If you can make the defendant seem like a liar in one aspect, why wouldn't they be lying about something else? It seems to be, that's what it seems to be. And as we've just mentioned before, it's also designed to take this out of a legal court and into more of like a settlement sort of arena.
It's playing into the fact that in the initial agreement that was signed by them both, allegedly, that it would be settled, if anything would take place, it would be under private arbitration. So the attorneys of Vince McMahon are saying that basically that's what we agreed. So if this is the route you want to go down, then this is the way that we will do it. Of course, we will keep you up to date on this one. We can get more details on it as we know more at cultaholic.com. Last night, we saw the release of another WWE star. We've seen Jinder Mahal, we've seen Indus Sher, we've seen Zion Quinn and Xia Li let go this week, along with Von Wagner as well, which came as a shock because there was a guy that, according to PW Insider, was being considered for a draft placement this week.
Very strange indeed. Very strange 180.
Another name gone this week is Cameron Grimes. Grimes arrived on NXT, formerly Trevor Lee, in places like Impact and TNA Wrestling, where he carved himself out. He made a character for himself, which is like a modern day millionaire that had made a bunch of money off Dogecoin and the video game GameStop, that's it, on shares on GameStop. So he made a big load of money that way, and it was kind of like a modern millionaire character. He was in a storyline with LA Knight and Ted DiBiase during the pandemic, and then he got called up to SmackDown, and just kind of nothing really happened.
Well, slightly before that call-up, he tried out a new, more serious character where I think he'd been affected by deaths in his family and stuff like that, and he wanted to try out a more serious thing, which I don't know whether it was his fault. I think it was more that it never really got given the time or the space to develop as it should have done, because there's nothing wrong with wanting to try out a more serious character, but it just never really took off. Then when he got to the main roster, he was kind of back to being wacky old Cameron Grimes, but without any sort of promo time or anything to build that character. So I feel like he's been kind of boxed into a corner slightly and not been given the room to creatively expand, basically.
He revealed all in an emotional video on socials. He said he got the call up from WWE yesterday, informing him of his contract release. He said he tried to learn from everybody in WWE, was grateful for the opportunity, but says a fire has been lit under him. He says, all I ever wanted to do is work. The good news is there'll be no stopping Trevor Lee now. The WWE is all I've ever wanted to do, but if I have to go somewhere else to show them what they missed out on, then that's what I've got to do.
Fair enough. There was a nice message I saw on Twitter from Matt Cardona, who quote retweeted this and put, "You'll be fine, Trevor." But also, because it's Matt Cardona and he can't ever be fully nice, he put, "You'll be fine, Trevor. Just a warning, I don't catch dives." But that was I think in his own Matt Cardona way, that was a nice thing to do.
I saw a nice message from Mustafa Ali who said, "We're waiting for you."
That's cool.
So and also like lovely messages of support from within WWE. Samantha Irvin, Damian Priest, among the names that have reached out and just given nothing but love to Cameron Grimes. As far as we can tell, a lot of the guys that have been released were very loved. Fightful Select said that like these were really very well liked guys. That unfortunately, just in a business like that, WWE have just gone, "Now we're going to pursue other options at this point."
Yeah, it's a shame. It is a shame.
It is indeed. But you know what? If it does light a fire and we see the greatest of Trevor Lee in the months and the years to come, then happy days indeed. It was NXT Spring Breakin last night. We had a couple of matches set for next week before before we get into the big talking point from last night.
Yes, it's a 2-week affair. And after an in-ring showdown between the two, we will now see next week a NXT North American Championship match between Obafemi defending against Ivar of the Viking Raiders.
Ivar the Viking.
Ivar the Viking, as Matthew calls him. Although it's got confusing for him because on NXT, sometimes he shows up backstage in just jeans and a t-shirt. So then it's like, Ivar the
Viking, the not Viking.
Yes. Also, a tag team title match as well, as the relatively new champions, Nathan Fraser and Axiom, will put the belt on the line against the authors of Pain, Akam, and Razor. It's speed versus strength.
That should be a fun match.
Oh, yeah,
that
absolutely.
should be fun. And if you play the GM mode on 2K24, it'll be the best match of the week. Because Giants versus Cruiserweights always rates well on 2K24.
Really?
That's a GM mode joke. You got it. You're there with me. I'm a niche comic. We'll also see an NXT Underground match between Natalya and Lola Vice. Added twist that not only will Carmen Petrovic be in Natalya's corner, but Shayna Baszler is going to be in Lola Vice's corner, which is a lovely bit of symmetry with Shayna Baszler coming off of doing blood sport.
Yeah,
and now doing the no blood unless Shawn Michaels agrees sport in NXT Underground.
I wonder, with one eye on NXT Battleground, which is coming up and which we now know is taking place in the UFC Apex arena in Las Vegas, whether Shayna or some of the more MMA type wrestlers in WWE will be on that card. Even if they're on the main roster, maybe they could come down for one.
That'd be quite nice. On a side note, isn't that a lovely venue?
I like it, but
really nice.
Even if it was crap and falling down, I just like when wrestling venues look different in some way to other ones. I love the cruise ship stuff because it was so different in AEW, and I like this one as well because it's very and as a bonus, it does look all shiny and lovely and new.
Shiny.
Yes.
Main event of night one, week one of Spring Breakin, saw a major title change in NXT.
Whoop the trick. Oh yeah, man.
Whoop that trick.
That's trick, y'all.
That trick was well and truly whooped.
Yes, Trick Williams is the new NXT champion, defeating Ilya Dragunov in the main event of Spring Breakin night one. Dragunov's reign was 206 days long, ahead of what many people think is an impending main roster call-up in the WWE draft, which would make sense. He's lost the belt now. The draft's in a few days' time. Get him up there. Have him batter Gunther again like he did back in WXW all those years ago.
Wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Really good showing by both of these guys. Absolutely the right time to pull the trigger on Trick, I do believe. And what a great opportunity for Trick to, at such a young age, when you think about when he came in as the hype man for Carmelo Hayes, and everybody was going, well, Carmelo's the guy. Carmelo's clearly the guy.
Yeah.
But all the while, obviously Carmelo had a run with the NXT title and he's off to, I reckon, go and do big things on the main roster. But Trick was always there.
They're both,
There's Trick.
It was a strange case of like neither being the Genetti. I think they've both absolutely got star quality. Yes, Carmelo might be more of a modern day like super worker in the ring and the sort of thing that modern fans might look towards as being a really elite wrestler. But Trick's just got that undeniable star quality. He's got that Kavorka, the connection with the fans that everybody, that it's kind of tricky to get sometimes, but when a wrestler gets it, like LA Knight, for example, they've got it. I'm excited for both of them. But yes, Trick Williams, new NXT champion. Carmelo, possibly going up as well.
I see Carmelo heading elsewhere as well. Are you twitching tonight?
I am. Myself and Owen Mawson are once again taking control of the Swans in the Japanese second division. Or will it soon be the first division, Tom? Because we're top of the league and we're looking to keep going. Kind of went up the 80s and we're not stopping, brother. Let me tell you something, Jack. He'd said Jack sometimes, didn't he, as well?
He did say Jack.
Really?
Yeah, so did you, when you were watching, as a kid, you would have been watching, if you were my age, you're as old as the hills as I am, you'd have been watching and going, oh, is he talking to me?
Yeah, maybe I would have done. Sometimes dude as well. Dude. His dude's underrated. Everyone always goes for the brother, but sometimes he goes, let me tell you something, dude.
Well, can you say dude, Jack, and
dude,
brother
Jack.
on the stream tonight?
I'll try and slip it in, yeah.
Slip
If you want to try and see me do that, check out twitch.tv/Cultaholic from 6 p.m. UK time.
And for the latest wrestling news throughout the day, you can check out Cultaholic.com. Stay safe. I love you. Bye.